Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Elixir Specialty Coffee. Looks like whiskey, feels like tea, made from coffee, and unlike anything you've ever tasted before. Elixir is available at elixirspecialtycoffee.com. Use code IMAPITFORWARD and get 10% off of your first order today. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, we're talking about this thing that seems to be happening right now, which is all about employee wage transparency. So transparency seems to be a thing that is being talked about. It's a hot word in the coffee industry at the moment. And while we talk about transparency with regards to the coffee supply chain, this last couple of days, it's a couple of weeks actually, that these spreadsheets have been popping up all over the internet to get people to contribute data to spreadsheets that are sitting on a Google Drive spreadsheet for individual cities around the world. The idea is that you go to the spreadsheet that's assigned to your city, or if there isn't one, you create one, and you contribute your personal data of how much, if you're a contracted employee or a salary employee, not an employer, you go and you contribute your data to these spreadsheets. And there are pros and cons to this movement that I wanted to talk about. Just like there are pros and cons to transparency with regards to the coffee supply chain. So I thought it would be interesting to dissect some of this stuff. First of all, I think somebody should start the same movement for employers. So me personally, speaking as an employer, I get paid next to nothing. And if we're talking about transparency, I survive on very little money every month. It's not like I'm drawing from savings or anything like that. Being an employer being a business owner of two businesses that I'm trying to get off the ground, I make very little money. And this is not a unique story. This happens in every industry. So I just want to get off the bat by saying that's what my perspective is as an employer. But I definitely think that we should consider taking a look at transparency for employers. That being said, I was an employee for 18 years. No, that's not true. I was an employee as a CEO for 3 years, but I was an employee for somebody else's business for 15 years. And I can tell you that I am a fan of these spreadsheets that are popping up. I am a fan of having seen them and read the data that's on some of them. It is really important that we start to see the fuckery of some employers out there. There are a lot of people that are doing the right thing by employees, but there are some people out there that are doing some dodgy shit and they need to be called out. And for people, look, I've been looking on forums today that are having discussions about the wage transparency that people are coming out with and saying things like, these kinds of practices are burying our businesses. Well, my thing is, the main reason that we have to do these kinds of things and we have to support this kind of movement is because there are slimy, creepy employers out there that are paying immigrants that are less than they deserve because they can get away with it, because they won't speak up. The immigrants won't speak up. They're paying women less than they're paying men. They're paying less than award wage. Go have a look at the Seattle spreadsheet. I think that was the first one that was started. The minimum wage in Seattle for statewide in Washington is $16 an hour. unless you're a tipped employee and it's $12 an hour. There are people that are getting paid $8 an hour in Seattle. That's not okay. Guys, if we're going to expect employees to show up for us, we have to, at the very least, pay them a livable wage. And if you're unable to bring a team together that you're paying a livable wage to, forget about what minimum wage is, because in California, the minimum wage is $13 an hour right now. That's not a livable wage. You cannot live on $13 an hour working a full-time week. You are barely going to scrape by on what people are putting them when it comes to, like, most employers, what they're doing is once you have people on 6 hours, after that you have to pay them penalties. You have to give them a whole bunch of other stuff. So what they do is they throttle their hours down to $6 an hour and pay them $13 an hour, so that they can get away with not having to pay them all the penalties. That kind of a pay rate is just not going to mean that you're going to retain staff. Now, they're the pros for these spreadsheets. They give everyone a transparency to the great things that are going on and the fuckery that's going on. These spreadsheets list the name of the businesses that people are working for. They don't list the name of the employees, which I think is a little unfair. Like, if you're outing an employer, like, transparency is transparency. So the other thing is, none of the data is verified. So I guess these are the caveats to my pros for this. None of the data is verified. So we don't know if people are going in and saying incorrect stuff. We don't know if anyone is checking up to confirm the data that's in these spreadsheets. And I'm having had loads of training in science. I'm a big fan of data that has great integrity and that can be verified. So that's a concern for me. The cons. So we've spoken about some of the pros. The cons of this kind of a thing is and I have been contacted by people today with this absolute con. Employers are going to get tired of having to battle against this. And instead of doing the really hard work of trying to figure out how to fix the relationship between them and their employees, we are in an era where the alternative, which is technology, may very well be the route that they go down. And so they're either going to choose fix the relationships, go the easier route and pick technology, find a way to hire fewer people, pay them a little bit more, but put my investment into technology so that I don't have to hire people. And I think we all need to consider these pros and cons and think about how we do some sort of good that works for everybody. Because unfortunately, what I see as one of the potential consequences of this is that we are going to end up with less jobs for baristas and less potential for people to progress in a professional career in coffee. As we move through deeper into the technology age, there are going to be less and less work for coffee professionals. And being a barista is one of those skills that you can replace very easily with a robot. So this is, I hope, the first step of a plan. I don't know who is leading this movement or what the plan is, but I hope there is a plan to come to a table with employers and figure out how this is going to go, because the the option that may result from this is that there are companies waiting for this to happen. There are technology companies out there that are like, we have an automatic machine that will make coffee just as good as a human and much, much quicker, and without you having to put up with having to pay employee taxes and having to manage schedules and having to do all the extra stuff that comes with having employees. So please just consider the long-term ramifications of any of the strategies that you're going to employ when you are doing this stuff. I'm a fan of these spreadsheets. I'm actually going to dig in and do a bit of analysis on some of them, and it's going to help me pick my customers for Elixir. I don't want to align myself with companies who treat their employees like shit. So it's helpful for me as a supplier. So anyway, peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day. If you've got any comments on this, head to our Telegram. We're going to talk about it in our Telegram group today. T.me/mapperforward mastermind.